Welcome to the Ringer NBA show. I'm Kevin O'Connor, and this is Draft Class. Sitting across the table from me.
This is the first time we're all together in one room.
Here in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I know.
It's the Ringer staff writer,
They
Jonathan
finally come out. I
Tjarks.
asked them all year. They're like, we don't really want you around. But I guess for the draft, you can maybe come out. So.
You're here, man. It's good to see
Nice.
you. And also here, as usual, it's popular writer Danny Chau.
Oh man, the three amigos just here.
The food space is happening. I've heard rumors you're already writing food columns as we speak.
Okay. It'll happen soon, Bill. This is a message to our boss man, Bill Simmons.
NBA offseason.
Yeah, it'll happen soon. Don't worry about it. I love food. I love writing about it. Just give me some time. We still have the NBA draft season here, and this is how we wrap it up.
Arizona center DeAndre Ayton went number 1 to the Suns.
Yep.
Got Duke big man Marvin Bagley to the Kings. And then number 3, that's where things really got interesting. 2 teams passed on him, and then the Hawks dealt him. Luka Doncic went to the Dallas Mavericks with the number 5 pick. And the Hawks took point guard Trae Young from Oklahoma. He's got a top 5 protected pick that becomes unprotected in 2023. But the big story here is Luka Doncic.
Sure. Let's go with the lead here.
John, you're a Dallas guy. I'm just going to ask you the go-to sideline reporter question. The Mavericks just drafted Luka Doncic. How are you feeling right now?
Man, I've been scheming all morning. I've been like, hey, who do they trade for? Who do we sign? We're going to be good next year. This is happening. Let's go.
So there is no intention of this being like we're going to be patient with our rebuild.
Do you think Mark Cuban is going to do something like that?
Also,
no.
I guess, do you think Rick Carlisle is going to want to
Absolutely not. They don't have time for that. They're very impatient people. But this guy, this is the one rookie you draft and let's just make a playoff run now. The other guys will take time, but this guy, he should be ready to go.
So how does this work?
So you go Luka, I think you go Dennis and Wes Matthews at 1 and 2. Luka and Barnes at 3 and 4. Get a 5 in free agency.
How much do you think Luka steals the ball away from Dennis Smith here?
It doesn't matter because in Carlisle's system, they're on 2 point guards. So essentially, you're replacing J.J. Barrera, as Charles Barkley would say. Barrera, Yogi Ferrell, Devin Harris. Those guys are gone. You're putting Luka in the exact same spot in the lineup.
And
it's the same thing.
Luka's 8 inches taller than all of those dudes.
Yes.
Yeah, my guy Barrera had a good year, but obviously, if you get a 6'8" guy in that spot, it's better for you than a 5'7" guy.
And all 3 of us had Luka number 1 on our board.
Absolutely.
6'8".
Yeah, I'm pumped, man.
I'm
pumped.
Accomplished everything there is to accomplish for an international player overseas. For a teenager could possibly do.
I had an article about Luka. The youngest player before him was 21 to win EuroLeague. He's 19 to win EuroLeague Final Four MVP.
Yep.
So the youngest high for him was Tony Kukoc, by the way.
There are some fans listening to the draft class for the first time right now. They're like, "Who is Luka Doncic?" Jonathan, what has you so excited about Luka Doncic as a prospect?
He's definitely the most accomplished European prospect ever. So last summer, he played with Goran Dragic at Eurobasket, which is the champ. All the best teams in Europe play every 2 years. Him and Dragic won the Eurobasket championship. They beat guys like Porzingis. France, Spain, the Gasol. There's always good players in Eurobasket, and they won that. Then this year he's at Real Madrid. Real Madrid's the top team in Europe. They win the EuroLeague championship. He's the best player. They win the Spanish League championship. He's the best player.
And the seas kind of parted for him because Sergio Llull, their lead guard,
he got hurt.
Went down with a knee injury early in the season or before the season started.
Yeah. And Eurobasket.
Yeah, and that kind of opened up, Doncic being able to be this lead guy
to show the transcendent passing ability that he has. It
was a lot like Donovan Mitchell at Utah at Real Madrid. He had a bunch of vets around him. He had his role. They had the great Anthony Randolph on that team. Shout out.
And you mentioned his role. I think some people are worried what if he's a bust like Mario Hezonja? Hezonja barely played overseas.
It's a whole different kind of player.
He was the
Mario doesn't pass.
8th or 9th guy in the rotation as a teenager. Luka won MVP. Yeah. Elite passer for his age. Pick and roll ability is really, I think, elite for a teenager at this level.
Sure.
Would you guys agree?
For sure.
And obviously, adjusting to the NBA will be a new monster, like it is for any young player. But he already shows the ability to control speed, change tempo, speed up a little bit when he needs to. All the tools are there for him to be a really good playmaker in the NBA. The question moving forward is what level does he reach as a scorer? Only shot around 31% from three this year.
You know what's going to be nice? Guess who taught Jason Kidd about three-point shooting when he came to Dallas?
Ooh.
My guy, Dirk Nowitzki. Him and Luka, they're going to be in the gym all summer. I was telling them over there, he'll tell Luka you can go to Uptown once a week, maybe twice, but other than that, go to the gym. We're going to shoot baskets all the time. Dirk's the best role model possible.
So is Holger still around?
He comes every year, hang out with Dirk and do work.
There it is.
Holger's working with Luka. Let's make this happen, Danny. This is happening.
And the thing is it's not like Luka necessarily needs to improve his mechanics or anything. It might just be development over time. He's a good free throw shooter.
He's not a bad shooter at all.
He has wonderful touch on floaters and layups.
And he takes like dribble threes all the time. He takes like a really difficult shot.
That's
dribble
part of the
threes,
reason.
and he creates space for himself, off cuts and off movement so well. And when you see him do these things, it's so smooth. His release is effortless. They just don't go in. Part of it, I'm concerned, maybe it's fatigue. He hasn't stopped playing for the past.
He's played
2
around
years.
85 games in the last calendar year. I think 85 is the number after the game he played Tuesday.
Finished with 161 or 2 games, 163 games, I think, since September 30th of 2016.
Unbelievable.
That's crazy.
And that's one of the reasons.
He's 19.
Hopefully he doesn't play summer league. I think
I don't think he's gonna. I believe they said last night after the draft they're gonna give him a break because he needs it.
Yeah,
right.
sure.
Like you
So
said,
not
Danny.
even one parade game where they're like, oh, look at our star.
It would be nice, but it's unnecessary.
We got Jalen Brunson run summer league, man. That's why we drafted him. We got a great summer league point guard.
And a lot of the talk about Luka right now, we're talking about his skills, we're talking about what he's won, but I think the reason why he won so much at this level is because of really how he plays.
Yeah.
Super competitive player, very emotional.
See, if anything, he's a hothead a bit. Like he's really
for sure. Yeah. And over time, maybe that channels into a positive for him, right?
That's
winning
why
mentality.
That's why I love having Dirk around. Dirk's such a great role model. Hey, big brother, Uncle Dirk, man, just talk about life all the time.
I think that's been a little overblown with him being like a hothead.
I'm just saying, like personality-wise. A 40-year-old European legend, like that's like the best spot for a young guy like Luka to just learn.
And you got Rick Carlisle as well, one of the better coaches in the NBA.
Yeah, man, it's going to be great.
The fascinating thing is the other side of it where he fell 3 spots, 2 teams passed on him, 1 team traded him. And, entering the draft process, it seems like a lot of teams might actually have had him around 7th or 8th on their board, which seems fascinating. We all had him number 1.
Yeah. But what do we know? We're just blog boys. So
what do any of us know? But the thing is I do think it's worth touching on some of the concerns that teams legitimately might have had. And one of them is his athleticism. He doesn't have a great first step. He doesn't necessarily have that second gear when he turns the corner. Yep. Jonathan, are you at all worried about that at the NBA level? Is it one hesitation you might have?
It's a fair concern, but I look at it even the worst case, he's Joe Ingles. Like Ingles is not an athlete, elite athlete.
I had a conversation yesterday morning with an executive, and we talked about Luka. I was like, "What do you think about all these teams passing on him? And some teams have him ranked like 8th or whatever." And he's like, "I get it." And the reason why is because maybe he's a Hito Turkoglu type of player, and it's like that's still at his best a really good player.
And the thing too, Ingles was such a big part of Utah this year. He was just incredible for them. He shot the ball, he defended, he moved the ball. And without Joe Ingles, they're not in the play. I mean, maybe they're playoff.
Right.
He was like a third best player.
He held everything together.
He was their third best player, right? For sure. Is that crazy?
Joe Ingles is Chris Vernon's favorite player for
shout out Verno.
Aesthetic reasons. Sure, I think Joe Ingles would be a great worst case scenario for any player to have.
That's kind of the thing. We had talked about Doncic earlier in the season, and I had brought up, hey, okay, right now, and it was around March. I was like, would you rather have Luka right now or Joe Ingles right now on your team?
I mean, right now I'd probably have Ingles.
Yeah, I take Ingles right now.
Right.
Ingles never misses.
But that, I feel like their value to a team, even at this stage in their careers, are pretty similar.
I think one thing. Here's one thing to also point out. So last year, the leading scorer in the EuroLeague champs was Bogdan Bogdanovic. I went to a story about him last year.
King's favorite player.
He's good. Like he had a good year right away. He's older, but whatever. He's 26. He came in. He had a good, solid season for the Kings. I think that to me is like he'll be Bogdan at worst. I feel like in Dallas. That's to be a good player.
And then with Luka as well. The one other thing is the defense. I tend to be on the side that I think his defensive weaknesses are a little bit overblown. He tries hard. He's smart. He has a high basketball IQ.
And the thing, in Dallas, you got Harry Barnes and Wes Matthews to guard bigger forwards.
Sure. But really, with the switching defenses, I feel like there's no hiding anyway.
That's true.
But I do think that some of his weaknesses on that.
I don't think he would target him. You know what I mean? Like he won't be great, but I don't think he's like, let's just move our defense to attack him.
Because he's 6'8", because he's strong, because he plays hard, and you would think, over the course of the season, he's not playing.
I mean, we won't oversell. He won't be good at defense. But he should be like okay at best.
He's gonna get more athletic over time. He's probably gonna go back to P3.
Get him in the gym.
Lose a couple pounds. I mean, he was a completely different. In my eyes, he was a completely different athlete from the beginning of the EuroLeague season and at the end of it.
Interesting.
And so,
as fatigue started to build when he got to
Right.
that 90th game over X amount
man,
of
it's like
time,
2 months off. We're gonna have him like playing tennis or something. Just
You
chill
look
out.
at him, and it's like his reaction time on defense is there. He has a huge standing reach for a backcourt guy. I think it adds up to being a guy who,
I love that
won't
you
be able to
guys
target.
are all in with me. This is great. I was
Yeah.
I was working out to be like kind of like, oh, let's calm down, but nah, we're going
This is
for
a
it.
kumbaya moment.
And plus he rebounds.
He does.
And
He gets boards, too.
You gotta love that. And then for the other side of it here, 2 teams passed. Hawks dealt him, and I think that's the greatest risk of the draft that the Atlanta Hawks made. New general manager there,
They're
Travis Schlenk.
fascinating. They're fascinating.
They are. They traded. So they traded down. They got the number 5 pick where they took Trae Young, and they also got a top 5 pick that's protected in 2019. I think it'll convey that year because Dallas will make a push for the playoffs. But top 5 protected as well in 2020 before it's top 3 protected in 2021 and 2022. And then it eventually becomes unprotected in 2023. They're going to get it before then.
I would think so.
Probably next summer. Maybe Mavericks make a run at Boogie. We'll talk about that another day. But for the Atlanta Hawks, they're building what looks like the baby Warriors.
Yeah.
They drafted Kevin Huerter, who we have as a discount Klay Thompson in the NBA
Wait, would you
draft
say they're
guide.
the top 2 shooters in the draft, Herter and Young?
Yes,
In this draft.
and then they drafted Amari Spellman
Great
from
shooter.
Villanova, a guy who is a versatile defender, needs to get better, in better shape, as he did last year at Villanova, to be as versatile as a Draymond type. But he can do a lot of the little things. It seems, Danny, that they're building a Warriors type of team with, like John said, the 2 best shooters in the draft.
and you'd written this for today, and we had kind of in the editing process. There's a fun line in the piece where it's like they're basically building a B movie Warriors.
Yes.
You have Trae Young starring as Steph
good.
Curry. You got Kevin Huerter as Baby Clay, and Amari Spellman. The thing with Spellman is Schlenk was the guy who is credited as the guy who founded Draymond.
Yeah. I mean, so you're saying like you remake
Yes.
Spellman's body, like you remake
So
Draymond's
yeah,
body?
exactly. So there's some untapped potential in maybe getting him in better conditioning.
I think worth pointing out too, like not only are like Werder and Young, they're gonna be really bad on defense, but they can pass it too. Like that's not only that, it's 2 elite shooters who can also pass the ball, and it's that like synergy effect they're gambling on.
And that's the thing. It's like Herter right now is a better ball handler and passer was than Klay was at the same stage of his
that's
career.
fair. That's fair.
However, Herter is not quite the all-time great shooter that Klay Thompson is.
Also,
so
it's defensively.
it's
that's where-
similar, but a little different. It's certainly influenced by the Golden State Warriors. No doubt about that. Travis Schlenk spent 12 years
Oh,
with
wow, I
Golden
didn't
State.
realize it
And
was that
like
long.
Danny said, he was the guy credited for really targeting
So
Draymond
he left
Green.
Golden State after the 2016 season.
2017, he was hired. May
yep.
2017.
So he was there for okay.
He was there for the entire
the whole
run.
thing,
For the whole thing, from Monte Ellis being traded, to signing Andrew Bogut, and everything
Shout out
else.
Monte, man.
Absolutely, but Trae Young, I have him outside the top 10 in my rankings. Not quite as high on him as a lot of people are, but I do get it. I understand the logic of it for them because, like we just talked about with Luka, the shooting still needs to get better, right? With Trae Young, he is maybe the best shooter in the draft. He can shoot off screens. He can pull up from deep. He can pull up from mid range if he needs to. He can really pull up from anywhere. But his passing is very, very
the underrated part.
underrated.
Yeah, for
Yes,
sure.
and I think that's the dimension where Schlenk is probably thinking we get a Steph-esque point guard compared to a maybe Turkoglu-esque forward. And I can understand it, but it is certainly a monumental risk for them to pass on Luka Doncic for a guy who is going to be targeted on the defensive end of the floor and whose offense, there's no guarantee that he reaches a Damian Lillard level as a player, is it, John?
You'll have 2 top 10 picks next year, right? And you got Trae and Herter, and we like Taurean Prince and John Collins. They'll be bad. They'll at least be fun to watch.
Well, for sure.
It'd really be fun to watch.
They-
yeah.
They're going to be a league pass team for that's a super deep cut for the true draft. Now, this Trae Young though makes it interesting for anybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think the Hawks will be one of those weird hipster league pass
Also, maybe
darlings.
Trae Young could sell tickets, just jacking shots.
That's kind of what I think a lot of these teams in just under the top 3 are kind of banking on. Like with Trae Young, you get a lot of star potential.
Just like the circus of it all. It'll be fun to watch that. And what does Atlanta care? They don't ever come out anyways. Maybe that'll do something.
Are we too optimistic about this for Atlanta?
Oh yeah, well,
mean, it might not work.
Look, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, but like, it never actually, knockoffs never actually get better than the original.
Yeah,
so like, it's never going to be better than the Warriors. What we're going to watch is like a very weird, like almost uncanny valley, like oh, we're looking at something that kind of looks like
Uncanny Valley is good.
Yeah.
I like that.
Like it kind of looks like the Warriors.
Well, but also don't they have like 3 or 4 more picks the next 2 years? They got a bunch.
They have a
coming up.
bunch.
I mean, they're drafting like 6 more guys. This is just a
yeah,
For sure. And that's part of it where they have their foundation, a bunch of young players, very appealing young core, and then they have cap flexibility
You're
moving
saying,
forward.
like, what if they got like Cam Reddish next year and just said,
Sure.
F it, keep shooting?
I mean, they're going to be a bad team.
Yeah, that'd be really
And
bad.
so they're going to have another top pick. Maybe they get RJ Barrett next year. Who knows?
He'd be nice.
Maybe
All that
they
shooting.
package that Mavericks pick with their own pick and move up for somebody.
Yeah.
The fact is that they are in a really enviable position moving forward with an appealing young core.
I mean, they're just going to be bad for all, which that's whatever. It's a rebuilding team.
For sure. And the question is going to be, though, like, was it a mistake to trade Luka Doncic and get Trae Young in that future pick? We don't know what the deal is going to look like for a year.
That's gonna that's a 5 years down the line.
I got some Zen moment. If you're Atlanta, it's over now. It's done. Don't worry about it. The thing's been done. We're going forward. This is our team. Luka's great. Whatever. Doesn't matter.
And the one thing I do appreciate, really all top 3 teams that did pass on Luka is they weren't letting fan opinion influence their
For sure.
decision.
I mean,
you know,
yeah. What do we know? He could suck.
You know, the Kings at number 2, every Kings fan in the world, including Riley McAtee from here at TheRinger.com, wanted Luka Doncic. They took Bagley anyway. Number 3, Hawks fans not happy they passed on Luka Doncic. They took Trae Young anyway. They just did. They did what they wanted to do, and I think at least for now, that's a sign that ownership. They have a new owner there, Tony Wrestler, is at least giving Schlenk the freedom to do whatever the hell he wants, to build his team the way he wants.
Owners picking picks doesn't seem to work out very well. Yeah.
Interestingly, also in this year's draft, 5 of the top 7 picks were bigs in a league where it's getting smaller. More teams are playing small ball. You're seeing fewer 2 big lineups. DeAndre Ayton went number 1. Marvin Bagley went number 2. Jaren Jackson went 4th to the Grizzlies. Mo Bamba went 6th to the Orlando Magic. Then Wendell Carter went 7th to the Chicago Bulls. Is the league going to get bigger? Or are we going to look back at this year's draft and think to ourselves, man, what were these teams thinking passing on these smaller guards, these wings, like Mikal Bridges, or Trae Young, or Miles Bridges, whoever it is? Like, how are we going to look back at this draft?
I guess here's the thing. Like, even if the league doesn't get bigger, maybe the good guards are in the next draft and 2 drafts from now. So if you're like, the guards in this draft aren't great, you can't be like, I'm going to get a guard. But if you think, you know what I mean? Like, maybe, I think it will get smaller. Maybe these aren't good guards. So if you don't think they're the best, don't draft them.
Yeah, I just think especially with the top 5 picks, you're looking for guys who have the potential to change your franchise forever. And if you see that in these bigs, there's no reason to go the other way just because of what is currently happening in the NBA.
Yeah, you got to believe in the guy you're taking.
You have to believe in the guy you're taking. And I think how we look upon this draft 5 years from now, it's contingent on how good these guys are. If these guys are good, it forces the NBA to be a different, a different league.
Exactly, Danny. You and I have talked about this. You wrote about it as well, where I think right now, like entering this year's draft, there's been a lot of focus on like what the league looks like in the playoffs now. But in reality, like when the Warriors built their team drafting Stephen Curry in 2009, Klay Thompson in 2011, Draymond Green in 2012, nobody was talking about like, oh, this is going to be great for today's league. They just made their picks. Right. And in reality, it led to the type of team that they have now that has changed things.
Okay, here's what I'm
Golden
thinking.
State changed things.
Here's my thought, though. Sorry, go.
But the big men could also change things the other way as well, because there's a lot of good bigs in the league. Kristaps, Joel Embiid, so on and so forth. There's a lot of bigs coming in 2020 as well. Yeah. And I think these picks don't matter this year. It doesn't matter if they fit in today's league. It's about what it looks like in 2022, 2023, and so on into the future. That's what matters, and I think we are going to get bigger in the future.
One thing I think, though, I feel like the ability to shoot threes off the dribble that's like the game changer. Like, that's what makes big so much harder these days, is like, I think there's been more and more guards who can consistently make pull up, step back threes. I think that raises the bar for big men, especially in a playoff series. And that's the question for all these guys. Can you guard guards who can shoot threes off the dribble? Like that, if you can do that, you'll be fine. If you can't do that, I think it's going to be harder and harder for you.
Yeah, I mean, defensive versatility is certainly going to matter. I think really no matter what the size of the player is on the floor.
Everyone's going to do it.
Whether you're 5'10" or 7'2", but you're going to need to be able to switch and defend multiple positions, at least at a competent level.
Yeah.
Not everybody can be Draymond, though.
Sure.
I mean, one thing we're not discussing is whether maybe these bigs can also play small. Like, hey, Vlade Divac said Marvin Bagley.
Yeah.
3-position player. Yeah,
he did say that. He said could play both forward spots.
Both forward spots.
Very interesting. And that I remember a couple years ago. Remember when the Sixers had Embiid, Okafor, Noel? I was like, man, I wish they would play a supersized lineup with like the smallest player at 6'10", and they might be able to do that with like the smallest player being 6'9". But I wonder with like these skilled bigs, there's a way to go super big as well.
I will say Bagley has way more perimeter game than guys like Noel and Embiid.
For sure.
Embiid, but Noel and Okafor. Bagley's got perimeter game.
Bagley can handle in the open floor. He can shoot threes at least an average level. We'll see what level he reaches there.
I think for me, like with him, I think it's a project. It's like making him more perimeter oriented. Like you remember when Boogie came into the league in Sacramento? It was very much I'm a post guy. I want to shoot threes, and he grew into a perimeter guy. I think Bagley, the same thing has to happen.
Jonathan, you have Jaren Jackson as the top big on your board.
Love him, my guy, JJJ.
So for Chris Vernon and the Memphis Grizzlies fans, what is it about Jaren Jackson that has him as the number one big on your board?
I think it's the two things: 3-point shooting, 3 things: 3-point shooting, perimeter defense, rim protection. I think he can do all those 3 things at a high level. I love my centers who can do those 3 things.
Memphis fans are going to have to be patient, though. Only 18 years old.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how much he's going to be able to
Will he
contribute.
even start right now? Maybe he won't.
Maybe, but I do wonder what kind of role he'll play when they're trying to win games early on.
I'm not sure he'll be in. Yeah, he might not be in it.
Yeah, but you know what? Like for them, it's really about, again, 3-4 years from now. It's the post-Marc Gasol era. It's when Mike Conley's towards the end of his massive contract. When Jaren Jackson, you would hope, is kind of the bridge into the new era.
I have the same thing. I like Marc Gasol as a veteran for him. That's awesome. That should be good.
And then Mo Bamba at number 6 and Wendell Carter at 7. Both of those guys, I love both.
Yeah.
I know both. I believe, John, you have Bamba 11, Carter 10. Danny, you like Bamba or Carter as well?
I like Bamba. Carter, I'm a little iffy on, but I mean the skill set with Carter is undeniable. With Bamba,
I think he needs a point guard real bad. They need to get someone in like next year who can run
for who's that?
Orlando.
Oh yeah,
Orlando's got to have a point
guard.
Yeah,
I mean, you could say the same about Chicago, really. Like Chris Dunn.
I heard about Chris Dunn this year. He's a really nice guy. He may, I don't know.
And
he's a good guy.
And let's hit quickly on DeAndre Ayton,
for sure.
number one guy in the draft. For Phoenix, they had an interesting draft where they drafted Elliot Kobo with the 31st pick, and they also made a trade in the middle of the draft where they traded up to get Mikal Bridges from Villanova. They had initially drafted. Yeah, that was very wild. They drafted Zaire Smith. Sixers head coach / general manager Brett Brown said like they had Bridges and they were stoked, and then Suns made a hard push to trade for Bridges.
Right, they gave up a lot to get him. So.
Interesting. They gave up an unprotected Miami first-round pick in 2021, and that could be the year high schoolers are allowed to enter the draft. Don't know that for sure. We don't know. Miami might be a contender then. Miami might stink.
I just hope we're still around, man. You know, there's going to be a presidential election. Like, how's 2020, man? We'll get 2020 first. From 2021.
Assuming we're still here and the NBA is still thriving, last night I felt a little bit iffy about Phoenix's draft, but after sleeping on it, I like it because I love Okobo.
Yeah, that was a great pick at 31.
Yeah, it was.
I like that one.
That's a steal right there, and I just feel like you kind of get the outline of the team that they want to be. Like you see, you know, with Bridges, you got a guy who's just solid, and he's going to be able to cover for a lot of what Booker can't do. And you know, Okobo, you know, you're looking at maybe a point guard of the future. He's definitely not going to be that guy next season. Next season's probably going to be Brandon Knight, who I don't think anyone has thought about for the past 2 years.
Is he going to start at point guard for them?
I mean, he's better than
any
of their options right now, right?
About that.
Put it this way. This is their young core. This is like a projected starting 5. DeAndre Ayton, Mikal Bridges, Josh Jackson, Devin Booker, Elliot Kobo.
I'm in on that. That's a nice 5.
Then off the bench, you got Dragan Bender, Marquise Chris, TJ Warren, Tyler Ulis. So from there, it's like you have 9 young guys.
I like it.
Who, moving forward, some of them could be trade pieces. Some of them are keepers. Obviously, Devin Booker is your star. He's 21 years old, averaged about 25 points per game.
We all like Josh Jackson, right?
We all do, yes. And I think we all feel pretty good about Mikal Bridges. I'm a little bit lower on him than you guys, but we all like him.
Booker.
I mean, there's a scenario where I can see them running like a 3-guard backcourt of Booker, Bridges, and Jackson.
I'd love to see. Do you think Booker can just be the point like all the time?
I mean, if you have him and Jackson out there, both of them have
good
ball
vision
handling and both have like Jackson especially in the
I would
open
be
court.
Totally down. That'd be awesome. Let's just see Jackson and Booker running point.
All 6'6" guys.
Oh my goodness.
And then with DeAndre Ayton, obviously with him, there's a supreme offensive potential for him to stretch the floor from 3, for him to play inside, really good rebounder. The question with him, and really I think the most important factor for their future moving forward, is his defense.
For sure.
Right? Because Okobo, above average defender. Devin Booker, maybe playoff situations he can be average, but during the regular season he's
just
been
Josh Jackson
pretty
right
messy. Yeah, Jackson and Bender potentially. Long term, we'll see. He's still only 20 years old, but DeAndre Ayton is really the guy who can make this go. If Ayton manages to reach his potential on the defensive end of the floor, they could be one of those contending teams
I would say
through
like
the 2020s.
literally, the better DeAndre Ayton is at defense, the better the team is. It's like a direct correlation. As Ayton gets better on defense, that team's going to get better. So it's like, it's all on you, man. This is your team. If you play good defense, we're going to be a really good team. Let's go.
Yeah, and if this is a Karl Anthony Towns situation where the defense just actually kind of lags from his college production, it's really hard to see.
I would say you got to be patient, man.
Yeah.
It's like DeAndre's going to come in the league. He's going to want to score, which is fine. Like, it might take him 2, 3, 4 years to get better at defense.
Yeah.
So just be patient.
You got to be patient with him. I think he showed flashes.
He definitely has tools. He has all the tools.
He's
for sure.
all the tools. Excellent athlete. Excellent body as well.
I mean,
he's strong. He's quick.
Incredible athlete. I mean, I guess he's incredible.
The potential is there. We're going to take a quick break, and after that, we're going to talk about Michael Porter free-falling to the 14th pick. First, we got to hear from our sponsors. We're back. Big surprise last night was Michael Porter from Missouri falling in the draft. He was projected before the season as a top 3 pick. Then he had his back surgery.
And then he was floating around at number 2.
Yes,
he got linked like a week ago to number 2.
Yeah.
A week ago.
Yeah, exactly. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, the LA Clippers, he fell to 12 and 13. And I know Jerry West liked him.
Ballmer's guy.
Steve Ballmer, Seattle guy, liked him.
I wonder what happened there.
And they passed on him. And that says to me that at Denver, at 14, if the Clippers passed on him, something's up. And I still think it's worth the risk, though, for Denver. It is worth the risk with Porter's scoring
Because they're already
talent.
pretty good. They don't need him to be good right now anyways.
And he might sit out the whole year.
Yeah,
as well.
whatever.
So with Porter, though, is he worth the risk, though, at that point of the draft, in your opinion, with the injury risk? Because there's other guys you liked on the board, though, isn't there, John?
I would have taken Zaire over him, but everybody else, I'd be happy to.
Well, and that's the funny thing is, as I had heard before the draft, that Zaire Smith would have been the guy.
He'd have been awesome.
He would have been.
I love Zaire. That's my guy.
I think Zaire was the guy they absolutely would have taken had Michael Porter not been there.
Had Michael Porter not been. So
yes.
It was reported that Michael Porter hadn't actually spoken with the team until draft day, right?
The Nuggets.
Interesting.
Yeah, well, why would he? It's such a doubt of his
Yeah,
range.
I think that was the case, and I think it's a good situation for both teams because look, the Nuggets are already a fringe playoff team. They're probably going to make it next year if all things go well with Paul Millsap. You let Michael Porter sit out a year, kind of get a feel for the NBA lifestyle, get a feel for what the team expects from him and what they need him to grow into. I think it makes sense.
I think so too, and I'm happy for him that he fell.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because he's a guy who, for weeks prior to the draft, he's talking about how I'm next KD, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Tracy McGrady, and NBA teams last month at Combine after they interviewed him. There was one time I was talking to 2 executives from 2 different teams, and one of them remarked how he said. Michael Porter said to us, I have no weaknesses. And then the other guy chimed in. He said the same thing to us. He's so cocky and so confident. And it's that's good. But now he has a chip on his shoulder where he's maybe he sits out the year and learns what he needs to do in order to succeed in the NBA.
There's less pressure on him.
Less pressure.
And if you go to Sacramento, there's so much pressure on him.
As the number 2 guy and for a losing team that hasn't made the playoffs in 100 years.
Don't put too much weight in this guy's back. Let him.
I just, a bad back is kind of a weakness.
It's just I think this is the great spot for him. I think you're absolutely right. Just less money. Sorry, buddy.
In
you're
short,
still well paid, though.
I mean, we're not doctors here. He had the same. It sounds like he had the same injury that Tiger Woods had, which is especially scary and alarming. But assuming the injuries are fine, has a chip on his shoulder now, and then as a player for Denver. I like a lot of their youth. They have a great passing big man in Nikola Jokic. They have good guys in the backcourt, Jamal Murray, Gary Harris, and now they got to go to score
with
forward,
Jokic,
John.
You don't need Porter to pass too much, right? You can just go get your shot. Jokic will get you the ball. Go shoot 20 times, but Jokic will have the ball, and then you just kind of take your shots. That works really well.
Yeah, having Jokic there creates a completely different
I think
ecosystem.
he makes Murray a lot better too, but same thing. It's just take your shots. I'll move the ball for you. I love Jokic.
I like it. I like the fit for Denver. It's worth the risk at that point in the draft.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's do some quick hits.
Okay.
Who had the best draft?
Are we all in agreement?
Yes, I'll try to find someone besides the Mavs. Y'all want to talk about the Mavs? Let me see. Who else?
I think it's the Mavs.
It's the Dallas Mavericks for sure. I think with that just ballsy move to move up for Luka Doncic, also getting Jalen Brunson, a reliable point guard in the second round. Mm-hmm. They had a really, really good night. It could be a franchise-changing night. And then moving forward into the summer, we'll see what they do. The offseason's not over for them. They want to potentially pursue DeMarcus Cousins or Clint Capella, could chase Julius Randle or DJ if he enters the free agency, which I don't think he will. Yeah, who knows? Or
We've been,
bring
ta-
back-
I mean,
yeah.
we've been scheming about it.
Yeah.
Favors, I mean, all kinds of guys.
Put it this way, they're going to have a young core with Dennis Smith and Luka Doncic
excited, man.
and so on and so forth, with potentially a competitive team. And I love what they're doing. I feel good for the Dallas Mavericks. Who's the best player, fit, or situation?
I guess I'll give one. Sixers. I'll say them as a second. I love what they did. So getting Zaire and then having that extra pick. Getting Zaire on that team plus the extra pick. And my guy Shake Milton at SMU. I still believe in Shake.
We still believe. At least me and Tjarks still believe.
We're on the Shake Island here.
I do think it's worth mentioning for Philly that they save about $1 million
it's
in
true.
cap space by trading them from 10 to 16, which helps. It could help moving forward if they want to have their supermassive offseason getting Kawhi and LeBron. Every cent's going to matter. Even just one of those guys, those extra cap savings matters. And guess what? I think Zaire Smith is a better prospect.
Yeah,
than
we
Mikal
all like
Bridges.
Zaire, man. He's going to be so much fun to watch next year.
He-
Him catching oops from Simmons. Oh, that's
my
going to be
goodness.
sick.
So how? I mean, maybe this is off topic, but how much do the Sixers need to offload to be able to give the full 10-year max?
So for them right now, it depends on the order of operations. If you're trading for Kawhi, you got to give up a lot, Fultz, Covington, Anderson, Korkmaz, Bayless, so on and so forth.
Bayless
but
is definitely out there.
Yeah.
it wouldn't be as difficult for them to unload the necessary pieces to create max cap space. That would be an easy process. It depends on who you're bringing back and what
I
JJ
think,
Redick
would you
signs
go
for
for
and all that.
Kawhi? I think I'd just do it.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Kawhi.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
we'll put it this
Kawhi.
way: if you don't go for Kawhi, it means that your doctor, the guy who looked at him in New York,
That's a good point.
that means he gave it a no-go. But if he gives it, if he would know better than anybody else,
He
if
would.
Kawhi is going to be okay moving forward.
Right.
So that gives him a little bit of an
Man,
advantage.
he'd be incredible on that team. I'd go for it.
let's go.
Yeah, let's do it.
It would be fascinating with that young core. Even more so than LeBron. We'll see though.
I think you're right. Even more so because
Yeah.
it's better fit with the Simmons.
Way better fit.
Yeah. Even though, just as a quick aside, I would love to see LeBron push Simmons off ball for about 2-3 years.
It'd be fascinating.
and see how it
Imagine
develops there.
those guys doing a 4-5 pick and roll with
Oh my
Simmons
God.
as the roll man. Oh, that'd be crazy.
What's the best player, fit, situation, Danny?
Maybe people will disagree with this, but I really like the Lonnie Walker,
Yes!
Coach Popovich
Lonnie.
union
Team Lonnie
here.
here. Team
So
Lonnie.
there was a fantastic factoid that was brought out on Twitter last night. Lonnie Walker is the first player in Spurs history to be born after they won their first championship.
Oh, that's crazy.
Whoa.
We are all old. We are all way old.
We're definitely
Yeah.
washed for sure.
I just think Lonnie Walker at that stage in the draft has as much star potential as anyone post lottery. And with the Spurs being in such flux, you really have to take a chance, and you really have to believe that Pop can, get a hold of Lonnie and rein in his interest and rein in his potential. I think that's awesome.
We talked about this last night on
Yeah.
our live show during the draft, where Lonnie Walker, a lot of it, he's a good shooter, not a great shooter.
Right.
He's a good defender, not a great defender. Maybe the Spurs can turn that goodness into greatness.
I like him
for
and
them.
DeJounte Murray too. I think that works
It's
well.
definitely a good
Long,
backcourt
athletic.
pairing, and in terms of fit, I mean, we're almost going basic here with the best coaches, but Boston Celtics drafting Robert Williams
Oh,
with
of
the
course.
27th
I was just going to
pick.
say Williams.
It's a wonderful fit for Williams specifically because he's a guy that's had motor issues, some off-court issues as well.
Life
where
coach Brad Stevens, man.
yeah, he's got Brad Stevens now and a defensive culture for him that maybe they turn him on. Maybe the green light goes on for him and he becomes that player that he can be. You've probably seen him more than anybody in Texas, John.
Yeah. I mean, athletically, he's not far off these top guys.
Not at all.
I mean, he's a crazy athlete.
And he would have been a lottery pick last year.
Yeah, he would have for sure.
He was a borderline lottery pick this year before he
And
fell.
he played in the worst possible team. It was so bad.
I had heard there's a medical question with him, perhaps, but we'll see with that. And in addition to the off-court
Also,
stuff,
one thing with Robert Williams, it's something that I think Brad Stevens mentioned, that he kind of doesn't see Williams as quite the one-dimensional rim runner type.
I love it.
So basically, we're looking at maybe another Aaron Baines situation, and this is something that actually
he's got some passing ability.
Yeah.
He's not unskilled.
Right.
Yeah,
And he
he
just
can
can't
pass.
shoot. He just can't
Yeah,
shoot.
can
Robert
pass.
Williams, before his sophomore season, had talked about wanting to
Yep.
expand his game, wanting to shoot more threes.
and then he shot
saying-
47% from free throw line.
Yeah, and then none of it showed.
I will say, I remember the first time I watched Robert Williams. They're playing Kentucky 2 years ago, and he had a pull-up jump shot, and I was just like, what? How could a guy does a pull-up jumper? That doesn't even make sense. He had nothing else the entire game, but I was like, I'm interested in a guy that big who can pull up jumpers.
Robert Williams was probably the first round steal of the night. Second round steal of the night for me is first pick in the second round. Elie
Yeah,
Akobo,
that's a good
French
pick.
point guard. Akobo.
Is he the third best shooter in this draft, maybe? top 5 for sure.
He's good.
Yeah,
he's
he's a
good.
good shooter.
I think Okobo. We talk about Trae Young, best shooter. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, best defender. Colin Sexton, best attacking the rim. Okobo has a little bit of all of that, and I'm a little bit surprised he slipped out of the first round. So for Phoenix to get him at that pick is really good. Danny, how about yourself in the second round?
I like Kyrie Thomas, who eventually made his way to the Pistons.
Jeez, he was all over the place.
He was the 38th pick. And they kind of gathered a couple of those guys. So they got Kyrie Thomas, they got Bruce Brown.
Ooh,
So you're looking at basically replacements for, Avery Bradley, for Langston Galloway. Guys who have much more upside, but along the lines of very similar profile, 3-and-D guys, tough guys.
Those are good comps.
Defensive-minded players. I'm into it.
I'll say for me, I'll go with the Minnesota Timberwolves. I think the guys they got Josh Okogie from Georgia Tech in the first round, and then Keita Bates-Diop fell a lot in the second from Ohio State. I think
KPD.
They can shoot it, they can kind of defend it. I think they can. If Tibbs would play these guys, they'd help this team.
Yeah, those are NBA-ready guys.
Yeah, I mean they can do very simple roles, which they shoot and defend.
What was the gutsiest decision? Is it just the Hawks taking Trae Young, or is there another decision in the draft that could turn out to be a ballsy choice?
I mean, I'm thinking whatever the
yes,
Clippers did.
I agree with that. Clippers were
Jerome Robinson, Boston College guard with a 13th pick.
We'd heard all of the rumors, all of them. They want Mo Bamba. They want Michael Porter. They want Luka. They end up with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Jerome Robinson, who was not a lottery prospect for most of the year, up until about maybe 4 days ago.
Played 3 seasons at Boston College, and the way it was described to me with him is that, at Boston College, he turned into a 2-guard. He played point guard as a freshman, then they planned to play the 2.
Kai Bowman, yeah.
And he can score. He can get buckets from 3, off the dribble, off screens. Yeah. He's a versatile scorer. He's very switchy. Looks like Jamal Crawford.
You're selling me, KOC. You're selling me.
The concern with him is playmaking. It seemed watching BC this is a selfish player. He doesn't pass the ball. Yeah. But I was told that he was simply doing his job, and that he has shown more playmaking in workouts, that he can do more.
And they had Bowman to run point last year.
Yes,
so yeah, it makes sense.
Exactly. And if you're the Clippers, maybe, or these other teams, I know the Bucks like them at 17, maybe it's like, this guy can play both guard spots for us. 6'5", perfect guard for today's league. I'm just playing. I wouldn't have taken him there either.
Right.
But I'm just saying, maybe that's the logic.
I will say Jerry West. I don't want to ever be like the great Jerry. If he says something, I'm not going to be like, Jerry West was a fool. That's crazy.
And by the way, these are the guards in their roster now: Austin Rivers, Lou Williams, Teodosic, Patrick Beverley.
See, I don't care about that.
Jawan Evans, Sedarius Thornwell, and then Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
How much of those first 6 guys are long-term pieces for them?
None of them.
So
are
I'm not too worried about that.
It is fascinating though this season though if they do have 7 guards in their rotation. That'll be fun to watch.
The one thing with Jerome Robinson is there was a ESPN pre-draft workout video where he talks about how he fits in the modern NBA, and he specifically references the Houston Rockets.
Yeah.
And he almost it almost makes it sound like he was making a pitch as, hey, I could have been one of those ISO scorers. I could have been one of those playmaking guards in, a Western Conference Finals series. So I can see how teams would buy into that confidence.
I would say the downside is if he's Jordan Clarkson is the
right.
downside. That'd be the downside. But I mean he has tools. For sure.
Right. We're really just trying to get Isaac off the ledge.
Yes, exactly. He'll be okay.
Yeah.
One quick aside is I think it's interesting how you mentioned the Clippers trying to trade up. Another team that I heard was trying to trade up was the Bulls. Yeah. And one of the difficulties I heard for them entering the night was that they had promised Boise State forward Chandler Hutchison with a 22nd pick. Last month, right the week of the NBA Combine, Hutchison shut down workouts. Yeah. Everybody's known he's gotten promised since that week. And if they had the 22nd pick in the draft to use in a package with 7, I think it would have been easier for them to move up. Yeah. But they promised Hutchinson, so they weren't able to trade the pick. You can't break a promise unless you get a pick higher in the draft, and it just wasn't possible. I feel like they might have – look, Hutchinson could work out. Wendell Carter I love, but I do wonder if we'll look back at that promise and think, man.
They could have went to Memphis at 4 maybe?
Who knows? Maybe they get up to 3. Who knows? Just who knows?
Well, I think Atlanta wanted Trae Young. They couldn't go below 6.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
You're not sure about that?
I don't know. I don't know. There's a lot of, and maybe Atlanta wouldn't have went to 7 because of the noise about them going for Trae Young, but I don't know if it would have been the guy for them there. Who knows?
Wow, I didn't even think about that. That's a good point, KOC.
It's interesting.
I like Hutchison, but I didn't even think about that.
I just why promise in the late 20s? I don't really see it.
I mean, you believe in a guy.
Especially that early, though.
I mean, I guess
too.
Simons got promised, right? I mean,
yeah, he did as
people
well.
do it. It just,
and
you
I think DiVincenzo did at 20 as well, but he didn't end up getting
Yeah.
there. Someone took him at first.
So I mean, it happens. It's just they had those 2 picks, so it's like, that's tough.
What was the biggest disappointment of the night, whether it's for fans, players, teams?
I just kind of think it was the fact that the Kings did exactly what we thought they were going to do for the past 3 or 4 days. Like, they were, in my opinion, the kind of the linchpin of the draft. They determined how everything else would shake out. They didn't trade. They didn't draft Luka. Like, Bagley is a very high upside player. I'm just a little bummed.
Okay, so I got an idea for you. What if they traded for Ryan Anderson, the Kings?
The Kings.
Because they'll get him for nothing, probably.
Hometown boy.
I mean,
Well, 'cause then he's
I
the
want more than Ryan Anderson.
I'm saying, like,
I want some future
I know.
picks. I want some assets.
I'm saying,
Come
like-
on, Daryl, give me something.
Right? Get something.
come
You
on,
could.
Daryl.
And then he's the 4, Bagley's the 5, De'Aaron's the 1. They won't guard anybody, but at least they would score points, you know?
It'll be fun.
That'd be
Tjarks
fun.
Tjarks made the pitch earlier today that they would be, what was it? A top.
I was speaking hyperbolic.
Yeah, you
Top
hedged
15.
it. They would be a top 15 offense.
I think they signed Rodney Hood and they have Bogut.
It's funny when I interviewed De'Aaron Fox, he's like, "Our offense is pretty good."
Where's I don't even remember. Was it good?
It wasn't. Good.
Oh,
It
I didn't
wasn't
think
good.
so.
It wasn't very good.
It's
Fake
like
news, De'Aaron.
It's like
Fake
De'Aaron.
news.
Let me show you these numbers here. What was best moment of the draft in my eyes last night? Adrian Wojnarowski
Oh, that was
just
hilarious.
storming through the doors after Mark Stein broke some picks early, and he starts just saying they fancy this player. They have interest in this player. They will not resist drafting this player.
Adrian's not a team first guy, apparently, man.
It made watching the drafts so much fun.
It was funny. It was
It
definitely
was funny. It was the most personality we'd really seen out of Woj, who just has a very steely veneer.
Yes.
Yeah, it was beautiful. It was like true poetry, and I'm so glad that Ringer Coffee Chief Craig Gaines
that was funny.
wrote
Yeah,
an
that's so
entire
great.
That's
piece
fantastic.
ranking every single one of his tweets according to, you know, the usage of those verbs and the usage of those euphemisms. It was a perfect quick read. I really recommend.
I mean, it
reading
was
on the
very
Ringer.
amusing. For sure.
Yeah.
It's like you would like just hearing that, you might be listening thinking like that doesn't sound interesting, but you read it like it makes you laugh consistently throughout. It's so
Like,
funny.
Craig is a guy who has devoted his entire life to words.
Yes.
And him talking about it in terms of a guy who has devoted his entire life to breaking news it's just a perfect marriage.
And the draft should be fun, and it was fun.
Totally.
last
That was
night.
great. I had a great time.
It was a good time, and this draft class has been a blast this season, guys, hasn't it been?
I've enjoyed it, man. It's been fun.
It's been great. Isaac, we can't do grades
Getting all
today, but-
sentimental right
yeah,
now.
But thank you
Eyes
so
are
much for
watering.
producing. Since we're on camera for this,
Class
no
is
grade,
on,
no
yes.
grades, but hopefully all A pluses, Isaac.
There we
You-
go.
You get one.
Summer school, baby. I'm about to hit the vacation up. Let's do this.
Jonathan, so fun doing this in person with you
Yeah,
today.
we'll have to do this
It's
every
good
year, man.
seeing
It's
you.
fun.
Danny,
Absolutely.
this is
Always
awesome.
a pleasure.
Shout out to Isaac.
Shout out Isaac Lee. SGA is going to make it good for you, man. Don't be
Yes.
too down.
From here in beautiful Los Angeles, thank you so much for listening to Draft Class. Please rate the Ringer NBA Show 5 stars on iTunes or wherever you
Just have
listen
that
to your
Green Day
podcast.
song, yeah.
Gives us a thumbs up on YouTube as well. Special shout out to my friend and the biggest NBA fan I know, Elon Musk.
What up,
Elon finally
I
answered
give
one of
him
my
a shout
tweets.
out now. Yeah.
Yes,
yeah,
he
that's
finally
right.
answered me. Like
Dude, that was the thing of the year for sure.
I was literally jumping up and
Kevin
down
O big time,
in my
man.
apartment.
Lake
It
Show.
It's so yes, Lake Show. I feel good about getting Elon on the show next year. We'll see.
No, get that Tesla, man. Get that. Start pushing the Tesla. You need a car, right?
I do need a car.
Hey, celebrity endorsement right now.
I'll take a Tesla over draft.
Kevin, no
Class.
Tesla.
If there are any Tesla employees listening, thank you, Elon, and thank you so much for
Yeah,
listening
absolutely.
to us
We
ramble.
appreciate you guys. Yeah.
Every
hopping
week
on with our takes.
It's been great. We love the back and forth with you guys. Thank you for listening. Anyway, guys, it's on to free agency.
Here we go.
Have fun this weekend. Peace out.
Yeah.
Anything is possible.